Welcome to the channel. Today we are reviewing the MJR wet tumbler. MJR has a long tradition of making rock tumblers where you polish rocks using some sort of abrasive and then rotating it for weeks and months on end. They also do a line doing wet tumblers which clean the brass using steel pins and water and using the rotation to agitate the lot and getting the steel pins to basically scrape the brass clean. The advantages with that sort of thing is that you get very clean brass both inside and out. Can you remember when we bought this thing? What were our impressions?
Oh well, we bought this back in 2017 and the first impressions were pretty good. We had a solid drum that was definitely going to be capable of holding, I think, the 500 rifle brass that we wanted to wash at a time. I think there were some things that worried us a little bit.
Yeah, the lid. I did not think the lid was going to stand up to it. Yeah. I mean, the lid is basically just a pipe end with a Jubilee clip. But, you know, here we are. Still the original clip. Still the original lid.
The other thing we had when we unboxed it was an awful lot of sharp corners. You'd lift up this thing and then you'd actually be a little bit gingerly about carrying it around just because you weren't sure you're going to get snagged on something.
Yeah, the frame is literally just 1, 2, 3 pieces of bent metal and sharp corner there, sharp corner there, sharp corner there, on the floor, everywhere. I mean, I have scratched myself on this machine dozens of times. I think the motor has been very good, reliable. You have a belt to transfer the power. I mean, it's nothing to this machine. It's very simple. We take the drum, you take the lid off, basically, you put your brass inside. It takes about 500 rifle or so. When you do like 9mm pistol brass, thousands, I mean, just pour it into about there.
Until
that much
you can barely carry it.
Yeah. And then in goes this. The steel pins stay in all the time. Anyway, they're stainless steels. You don't get them out or dry them or anything. I mean, they just live in here. And then you fill it up to just about there with water. We put in some citric acid, is it? Citric acid?
Yeah, it's a mix of citric acid and I think a little bit of lemon oil.
And we also use a car wax instead of a detergent that leaves a sort of very thin waxy residue so the brass doesn't tarnish as quickly. Run time, what, 3 hours?
Yeah.
Yeah, you have to, when you start it off, every time you use it according to them, you have to put lithium grease on the bearings, and we do that religiously. Ironically, I've actually reordered some bearings, and I asked the manufacturer of the bearings, and they told us, oh no, you only have to do it the once. But it does run smoother if you grease it every time. Yeah. So we just follow MJR's instructions there.
When we're done with tumbling it, then we've got to sieve it. So there are 2 sieves, which are here. One to separate out the casings from the pins. Of course, another one with a mesh bottom to keep the pins from disappearing down the drain. After we've sieved the brass, we put it back into a wash with distilled water only. That makes sure that water spots are kept down to a minimum, and then all that wet brass gets gathered up again, put onto a towel, shaken about a bit, and then put into a metal wire basket, which
from IKEA.
Which we can then use over a radiator or something and let slow dry it overnight.
Yeah, worst case, we have an oven, but the more heat you apply to the brass, the faster it tarnishes. How many years have we had this thing now?
It's about 4 years of constant running.
Not bad. And we must have done at least 250,000. I have done a couple of modifications to this thing. For starters, I've given it some sort of steel legs and rubber feet, just so that this thing sits still and doesn't scrape up my floor. I've also given it this rollover here. The drum, in its original condition, the drum rides against the rear plate, just against the steel. And I didn't like that. I mean, I realize this is a high quality, I think this is a gas pipe or something. So I don't think it's going to take you decades to wear down the walls, but I put a wall on anyway, I'm a bit OCD. So it's got a little wheel, great. Inside the drum, there are a number of paddles that agitate the brass. So when this spins, rather than the brass sliding against the outsides of the cylinder, they hit the paddle and that then just tosses them over and everything. I remember when I was shopping for this, there were people that said that the paddle system wasn't wasn't good enough and it needed to be some hexagonal drum or something, but it has been very good and reliable, and the paddles are still on. Problems with this? When it showed up, the power cord had a failure right at the plug end right there. And I called them up and I said, yes, hi, I have this failure. And they said, oh, we're very sorry. Okay, but where am I going to get a US cord from in the UK? I had to go on eBay and hunt down a US cord. So, you know, that was a pain, you know, connected all to the motor. But this one's better. The cord that came with it was very poor. It split all over the shop. Other than that, you have to be extremely careful with your bearings. The bearings aren't really held in by anything. So what I mean by that, they're not a tight push fit. They're actually quite loose in the housing. And the rod is held in on either side by a steel ring with a grub screw. So there's nothing really holding the bearings against the case. And I have had it where, for whatever reason, the entire bearing, as in not just the bearing spinning and the outside holding steady, but the whole bearing spinning, and it started eating into the side of the frame. So I would highly recommend, when you get this thing, just run some hot glue or something over the bearing and tie the bearing to the frame proper, just so that your bearing doesn't go for a bit of a walk. The protective panel over the belt cog, that's scraped, so I had to widen the holes there and give it a little bit more space. Other than that, conclusions?
I think it's been really good, reliable. Of course, we've kept the maintenance up, but
yeah, but we haven't really done much. Other than I have spare bearings, I haven't put them in yet, and other than a little bit of lithium grease, we haven't done anything. I mean, we've not shown this thing a lot of love, but it goes.
It runs and it runs.
Goes like mad.
So yeah, no complaints overall. I thought it was a very good machine, very good buy.
Yeah. We will see you next time. Bye from us.